It's a little bit of time. I see a couple familiar faces in here, but for those that don't know, my name's Curtis. I'm one of the customer success managers here at Zoom Assist. We also have Bill Baker, our senior manufacturing consultant, Greg Bonebrake, our lead developer, and then Ron Vogel, actually one of the founders of Rover and our personal in-house wizard, as I like to call him. So today we're going to be just going over a couple new things we have coming down the line and then focusing on maximizing workflow management. So we'll start that off with Greg.
All right. Thank you, Curtis. Let me share my screen here. All right, so in the last couple of master classes, we touched on some of our new inventory module where we give you the ability to maintain parts as well as to perform receipts against purchase orders. One thing that we're working on right now is the ability to define related parts. So I'm going into part maintenance for a particular item here, and now there is a section called related parts. What we allow here is for you to define relationships between parts. So we're calling them option groups. So I've defined an option group, or actually 4 option groups for this part, one called related parts, another one also purchased. This is for another customer here, and then the options go on. You can add more option groups. These are maintained in a control form in the desktop application currently. That will eventually move to the web. But if you wanted to define an additional option group for a part, that's how you do it. Now it shows up there. And then for each option group, you can add related parts. So there's a lookup here where you can look up parts and add them. You can indicate whether a part is required or not. And I'll get into that a bit further here, but I'll indicate that that one is required and add it. You also have the ability to define whether a selection is required in a group and whether you want to track those relationships. So these let you do things like when you're building a quote or an order within our point of sale module, and you go into a part that has related parts, if you require selections or have required parts or set transaction or the track relationship, it defines some functionality in how those related parts are added to the quotes or orders. So this is most of how the maintenance works. Now I'll jump into another screen here where we'll go into the part detail for one of these parts which has these relationships defined. And this is still a work in progress, so still straightening up some of this, but this is the idea of displaying those option groups and their assigned related parts within the part detail when you're in point of sale and building a quote or an order. So now we have those option groups defined here and the parts that have been associated with them, and those can be added to the cart along with the parent item. And speaking of quotes in addition to orders, another thing that we're getting ready to release is the ability to create sales quotes within point of sale. So previously in point of sale, you could only create orders. So now when enabled, after selecting a customer, you are prompted for whether you want to create a sales order or a quote. So now if you were to choose quote, the detail is a little bit different on a sales quote than it is on an order. So there's a few things here like status date and the notes which differ. If I would hop back and instead choose order, you'll see there's different information that we capture for an order versus a sales quote. But that's exciting. We're moving the ability to create the quotes into the point of sale. Additionally, you'll notice that opportunities quotes now show up as tabs within the point of sale. Again, this is configurable. You can opt into those being displayed. Opportunities open up and allow you to edit or create new opportunities all within point of sale. So point of sale will very soon become the sales module. It will replace a previous module which contained the quotes, orders, and opportunities. So yeah, that's a brief look at what we're working on and what's upcoming shortly. I will throw it back to Curtis unless anyone has questions.
Doesn't look like it. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, then so while we're going over everything, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand, put it in chat. We can take a quick pause and then answer those as they come up. So next we're going to be going over the workflow management. So I'll kick
Yep.
that over to Bill.
All right, great. Thanks, Greg. And just very exciting that we're going to be moving some of the opportunities, CRM, quoting functionality, all kind of consolidated in one place and through that kind of workflow. So appreciate that. I've got a couple slides to share, so then I'm going to kick it over to Ron on the Rover side. So just kind of want to talk about, why we're talking about streamlining workflow management. So just want to share a couple tools that I've used in the past. This is in different different operations, different scale, but it's a RACI template, and it's where we have kind of processes that are complex and interdepartmental, and we want to go through and we want to really specify different roles in each process. So there might be, the acronym is R for responsible. So that's who's responsible for the completion of task or project. A for accountable, who's ultimately responsible for the success. Who is supporting the completion of the task, and then who needs to be consulted and who needs to be informed. And once we get over to the ERP side, we'll definitely talk about kind of heavily here on some of these, but informed is a big one because when we get into ERP, we are dealing with a lot of business processes that are interdisciplinary, interdepartmental. So one of our goals in the software is to make it so that you can streamline, you can make these processes work, not so manually, so to speak. So without further ado, let me go and jump. This methodology, RACI, you might have also seen it. It looks kind of like a training matrix. So this is something you could do where you define the different roles in your company, you define the different tasks, and then you just chart it into like a matrix. It kind of reminds me of a skill matrix here. Another common way that we see this is in SOPs. So in SOPs, I just wanted to grab some of these from the internet, but we define a purpose, a scope, and then we define responsibilities in the SOPs. So, if you have that kind of structure in place, you have the processes and who you want to do different things. Now, this is where we're going to kick it over to Ron and to Rover side, is how do we take these documents and these visions, these ways that we manage our business, and then streamline it with Rover. So Ron, I'm going to stop sharing and kick it over to you. So we're gonna talk about the workflow management module today in Rover. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Yeah, the workflow management is probably one of the least understood and most used modules in the system because it applies across the board. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go through most of just explanation on some of these procedures and then focus in on the procedure alerts and the procedure definitions. There's a few other things besides just the alert system in this module. We're all familiar with logs. We've seen logs on the customer inquiry and on rep screens and the sales opportunity screens where you can create logs. If you ever wondered and didn't know where you could define the types of logs, you can have all the types of logs you want here. And then in log.e, when you create a log, you have a drop down of these and you can pick the one you want. So if you want to limit the types, so you don't have to type them in every time you start a log, you can create them here in log.control. And then when you do create a log, whether it's through an entry screen like cust.e or not, you can come right to type and drop those down and say, okay, it's a follow-up call. And the subject is a short subject that will appear on the drop-down list of all your open logs. And the details can be a book about what this log is about. It can be a short sentence, it can be multiple sentences. Obviously, it's a multi-line box, so you can make it be whatever you want. And then you can schedule a follow-up. And this follow-up will appear in your task notification box, which we're getting to in just a minute. So follow-up goes into the task box. as a future task or reminder, if you will. So logs are information about the history of a call or a conversation you've had, and the follow-up is a future task, a reminder to go follow up with somebody on a certain date and time in the future.
Ron, before you
Yes.
close that, I just want to jump in really quick. And one of the things I found the most powerful is at the bottom, there's that associated type. So we have the ability to, if you want to try to open that, you can basically associate these logs to almost any kind of record in Rover. So, we can log something against a sales order and a customer. We can log it an opportunity, a customer, a rep. So we have the ability to, it's not one-to-one. We can associate a log to multiple records, and it's just a great way to create these associations, and then we can create reports, et cetera, to look for them. So just wanted to point that out. It's a very flexible, powerful kind of record type, I feel like. So
right. And further, if you come into the log.e from another procedure like cust.q or cust.e or so.e that has a log associated to it, this association type and ID will be automatically loaded for you. You don't have to remember to do this. If you come in from cust.q, customer will be in the association type, and the ID of the customer you came from will show up automatically. So this will already be filled in by the time you get here. If you come to this from another procedure, if you come straight off a menu into log.e, it doesn't know who you're relating it to, so it gives you the opportunity to do that manually. That's the difference between the two. All right.
Yep.
Then so now that's kind of logs, and logs are just that. There's a control record and there's a log.e, and then there's where you get to logs, whether it's customer entry, whether it's sales opportunities, whether it's quotes, whether it's orders, whatever it may be, there may be a log associated with that record automatically. There is a mail control, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because this is completely dependent upon your setup, and showing you settings wouldn't do the next person much good. Mail control is used to set up your server email. You've all seen when you drop down a report or a display, it says preview on screen, and one of them is email and one of them is email server. Email goes through your desktop email, which is something like Outlook or Firefox or whatever it may be. If you have mail control set up, however, you can send it out through your server. So your email can come out from your server as opposed to having to come out from your desktop device. And that means it's going to come out from a generic email address like no reply at customer.com, or as opposed to coming out like my ronb@zoomassist.com. You'd see that if I went through my desktop email. So that's the difference between email server and email, and the mail control is just setting up that interface to your server email process. And then there's mail log.control where you can set up paths, and that all goes back into the control screen. This is because it was almost impossible to remember what all these paths should be, so we documented them here on the screen. There are messages, which are separate from all the rest of the stuff we just talked about. This is kind of an old school poor man's email. If you go way back to even before email address was there, we would create messages, and this messages looked somewhat similar to an email, and this is used mostly to send messages back and forth within the Rover system and not really intended to be used in an interface with Outlook or something. So if you're using Outlook to send messages, you don't need to use message.e. Back in the day, I would say like people would have 20 people out on the production floor and they didn't want to set up email addresses for all that. And those people didn't have PCs with email capability, so they would just use messages to send the messages back and forth through that. Yep. So you can send a message to any user ID that's in the security profile. You can do a copy and you can do a blind copy subject, and then you can add attachments. And you can also include a procedure link, which basically says, I want to include so.e or po.e so that they can click the button and open that once they get the message. And then there's a big giant body where you can put whatever you want in here. Now, the way that looks, if I look at if I view my messages Oh, sorry, wrong box. I broke something this morning trying to fix this, and I can't get my messages to appear here. So I have to actually click the open new view messages box, which opens message.queue. And this is how the messages appear to me. I can see all my messages that I haven't either deleted or that were sent. I can create a new message. I can get messages, which basically does a refresh. And then if I want to see the message, I can click this, and I see the message was sent from me to me, and show the message display and show the text box. I didn't send a procedure link, so it doesn't have anything to click on. And I can
Quick,
reply.
Ron, sorry to
Go ahead.
interrupt. We got
Yeah, go
a question from Eric in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
Says, are there any live chat capabilities in Rover? If not, are there any plans to add something like this?
There are no live chat short of these messages, and I do not know what the plans are, to be honest. So that's going to be a development question. Maybe we can find out by the end of the session and have somebody get back to us. So
yeah, I think we can take that down, Eric, and get you a response on it. As far as we do meet on a regular basis on product, and I think that we can, if nothing else, bring that in if that's something you're interested. I'd be curious for the group that's on if you could kind of upvote that, and if that's something you'd be interested to see in the product in the future. That could be the evolution of this functionality in the web for us, which would, it could be in the the desktop and the web. Just one more point I wanted to bring up too is this is a great example for when we were talking about the RASIC earlier. If there's something that happens in the ERP and I want to be informed of it, maybe that's when it looks like a message. If something happens in the ERP and I have to do something about it, or I want somebody else to do something, then that's a task per se. So one of the things we didn't talk about yet, maybe, Ron brought it up, is you do have the view of messages and tasks below near your favorites in the application. So that's just to tie it back to the RASIC. This is kind of how we can alert people that things need to be done, or alert people that things have happened. And we'll show you next kind of how to set those up. But Curtis, anything else in the chat here? Or... Okay, not yet. So
nope,
yeah.
Okay. All right. And by the way, something until yesterday, I didn't have messages and tasks down here on my menu, and I couldn't figure out how to get them. If you want to see them, there's a view option at the top of the menu where you can turn on or off messages and tasks below. Favorites and debugger are already set up. But if I want to see messages and tasks, you have to actually turn this on or off up here in the view. So that's an important thing to note. If you still see them down here, go up to view and turn them on. I'm going to skip the definition alert for just a minute because we're going to spend more time on that, but I just do want to touch on task entry. The difference between messages and tasks: messages just send a message to somebody and return a message to somebody. Task lets you set up an alert to say, hey, I want to be reminded about something. So I'm going to set this up for today at 9 o'clock. And I want to be notified tomorrow at 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock, not 12 o'clock a.m. I don't want to do that. I'll be sleeping. But 6:30 a.m. And you put a subject and a description. And when you save this, it puts a task that will remind you in the future. It'll pop a reminder on your screen when that date and time comes. And the way that looks is, if I get out of messages.queue, that's different. That's the task box. And I can see tasks, and I can show the task alert is scheduled to remind me at 9:30 today. So I'm well past that. So it already reminded me. And you can open this whole task and see the whole task as it was sent to you. Now, the difference between task.e and task.e2, task.e is me sending an alert to me sending a reminder to me. Notice that it didn't ask me who I'm going to send this to. It's my reminder under my user ID. However, if I want to send an alert, a task notification to somebody else, I can use task.e2, and it asks for which user I want to send it to. And then I can fill in the same information and it puts it into their task message, not mine. So that's the difference between these two. And they're separate because some people only want to secure people down to be able to do tasks for themselves. Other people want to allow security to task.e2 to let them go to other people as well. So this will set an alert. I'm sorry, a task to remind you at a future date and time. One backpedal just a little bit. Some of you are aware of this. Maybe some of you haven't seen it yet. Up at File and User Settings is where you set these options. And this is security.e2. And it's where you can say on an inbox or a message, I want to show the pop-up. Do I want that to fade after a certain number of seconds? Or do I want to forward this to an email and leave a copy? With my email address up here, based on my user ID, it'll look at this. It'll say, I'm going to forward this email to this person, and I'm going to leave a copy in the messages box, in my notification box. So that's the difference between the inbox and the task notification. You have a separate set of options here to send an email on tasks as opposed to sending an email on inbox. So you can play around with these settings to make it be what you want. And then if you want to receive emails, it's important to remember your email address must be valid. It must be up here. That's what we're going to use to send it based on the user ID. All we know when you're sending it is it's being sent to Ron V. It comes here to find out which email address to send it to. So that's kind of an, oh, nope, it's not. I want to save this. Okay, so let's get back then to the main subject of the workflow management, which is definitions and alerts. An alert is something that you can set or any user can set, provided they have the security, to tell them something occurred in the Rover ERP system. A record was saved, a record was deleted, a record was updated, a customer went on credit hold, an invoice went over the credit limit, a certain part was received. All these things are possible, and as well as anything else that occurs. Now, there are definitions and there are alerts. Definitions, we have predefined whole sets of definitions for you to use. So if I right click and look at definitions by name, we've got AP on come off a hold, AP go on hold, invoice taken off hold, invoice placed on hold. And all of these definitions are available to use for the alert system. So if I look and say, hey, I want to know when a new customer is created. This is the alert, or this is the definition that will be used. And there are certain codes in here that we can use. First of all, it'll act either on the file being updated or a procedure being saved. Almost all the things we set up will be against the file because we don't care if it comes in through cust.e or cust.ce or if you edit a customer record and hit save, if you've got the technical ability to do that. We want to know the change was made. So we go against the file. And then the title is new customer created, new customer was added. That's the description of the message. And then the message that gets sent, there are some codes available. Customer, and this ampersand #0 ampersand is the key for field 0 of the customer file. So that's the customer number. This is the code for field 1 of the customer file, which is the name. So you have to be a little bit familiar with the file dictionaries to know which field to use if you want to create your own. But it's a good idea to look at a lot of these and figure out what to do. There is text in the help that describes how to use this, and it gets into some pretty gory detail. So you can read this text, you can print out this text and use it as a reference. And basically it says, this particular one is only when a new record is created do I want to cause an alert to occur. I can use an existing record, which means I'm updating it, or any of it. In this case, it's new because this is a customer new. So that's one type of an alert. Let me show you a different one. And this would be where I'm going to ask the user a question. And let's look at receipts. I'm going to receive a certain part number. Receipts.part. I want to know when a certain part number is being received. Same basic information, but down here, I'm going to ask the user to tell me which part number they're waiting for. Not just any part number. I want to know when certain part numbers are received. So all of this is available. There is a link you can send. So if you put a link procedure name in, When they get the message, there'll be a button in that message that'll say inv.q. And when they click on it, it'll open inventory inquiry, and it'll put in field 1, which is I'm not sure exactly what the field is. That's the PO number or the part number. I think it's the part number. And it'll open inv.q for the part you said you wanted to receive. So these are all definitions. These by themselves do not send the alert. They're used by the alert system to send messages, because I could create 20 different alerts against this one definition. And that way I've got one definition defining it, and I've got 20 different alerts. So then let's get into who can do alerts. Some people set it up so they have all alerts going through 1 or 2 central people because they're controlling what alerts they want to have happen. Other people just open it up to everybody. They can create their own alerts. Doesn't really matter. You can create as many alerts as you want. So if I look at an alert for cust.new, we'll just use that same one for a new customer. The one note here that I will tell you is make sure you always check persistent if you want this to happen more than once. If you don't check that box, the alert happens one time and then goes away, and you won't see it anymore, and you won't know what happened. So if you click persistent, it stays out there until you delete this alert. And by the way, when you want to cancel alert, you do file delete and it goes away. It doesn't delete the definition, it deletes the alert. So I've got a definition of cust.new. It loads up all the information in here. It puts the users who are going to get the message. So because I'm creating this, it thinks I want to get it. But if I wanted, say, Bill to also get it, or if I wanted Bill to get it instead of me, I can delete this one and just leave Bill. That way I don't have to be bothered by this alert I set up and let Bill get it. So then by saving this, it creates an alert number, which is just number 1, and it's out there. Once that's saved, there's a background process called palert.control that's running in the service. Every time a customer record is saved, it'll go to this alert. It'll say, okay, the cust file's been updated. See what's happening. It goes to the definition, and it says cust.new is only for new records. So if it's a brand new record and it's in the customer file, it will send the alert to Bill for this. And it'll do that continuously because it's consistent until I delete this alert record. And the numbers are just sequentially assigned, so the number doesn't really mean anything other than it's a holder. Now, if I wanted to create another alert for the receipts process, remember that receipts.part we saw earlier. For a specified part, that had questions. Remember, it saw a part number. It says part number equal to, and then part number. So this say, what's the part number? And I would say, well, this is the part number I'm waiting for. Oops. Why can I not hit that capital C? Okay. So when I save this, I'm going to get an email anytime 110-51-52-C is a part number on a receipt. So that then now, yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Just to jump in here, I mean, this is a great example where those little problems that kind of repeatedly jump up. Maybe I have some parts that we've had quality issues in the past, whether it's from a supplier or even something we make, etc. It's just a great place to set an alert every time that comes in. Quality personnel or whoever gets it, or maybe it's a new, it's a new revision, etc. You can then build those. It's just going back to the RACIC, build in those processes where you have other departments that need to be involved when a part's received or part's created, new customer added, etc. So just jumping in there, Ron, keep going.
No, that's fine. And it's up to you as to how you set these up. You can. The reason it's called a workflow management is you can set it up. We don't have status alert codes preset in the order entry so.e module, but you could set up an alert when a new sales order is entered. You can set up an alert when the ship process is done, and you can set up an alert when the posting process is done to notify you across the board as things occur. So you can set the alerts up to do the notification for you, so you don't have to do a reporting tool to keep your eye on those. You'll get messages. Now, you want to be a little careful. You get 500 orders a day, you're going to get 500 emails a day. So be a little judicious on how you want your email box to be filled up.
Yeah, you wanna keep them for the issues at the present moment, basically, that are biting you, right?
Right.
And then you can always have reports out there that you can run periodically, et cetera, for other things. So
Right. So these are the alerts that are in this data account. The new customer created, we just created, and the specified part received was created. There was a part number revision change that notified me anytime the revision of a part number is changed. And that means whether it was changed through ECN or whether it was changed through parts.e, it will still notify me that the revision changed. And when sales orders are created or anytime a shop completion is done, I want to be notified. So these are the 5 that I have in this demo account. But obviously, we have some customers that don't use this procedure. We have other customers that use hundreds of these alerts, and they've just got a ton of them out there. So it's really up to you on how detailed you want to get there. And again, if you don't see a definition you want, you can call us, we can help you, or just look at something that's close to what you want. You can say, look, I want something to receive and I want it to work like cust.new, but I want to do it for something else. Maybe I want to do it for vendor. And you just change customer to vendor everywhere. And then you get a new definition number. And you'll save this and you can use it. You will not check the standard button because it's not a standard one. Then you can identify what's standard and what's not standard. So the key to the alert system is having the definition first. Obviously, find all the definitions you can that match what you're trying to do, and there are a ton of them out here. So you're going to have to, make sure you do some checking first. But obviously, there's going to be something. Work order closed manually, for instance. I've seen people say, hey, somebody's going into W.E and setting the status to close without actually closing it with ST.E3. You could set up a WO.closed definition and then alert you if somebody did it in WO.E, not just it got closed, but it got closed in W.E. And so those are the kind of things you can do with the alert system. On the reporting side, there's not too much here. The log.r1 is a log content listing if you want to do all your logs. And the message.q and the task.q are the things we saw when we came down here and said view tasks. Notice it says task.q and message.q would be here. And that just opens up message.q. So this is just a way to get to them from the menu as opposed to having them in the bottom. And the log report, you can run on, you can search for things, you can search subject, details, and type, and you can search for customer numbers or some keywords in the detail, and that will help you find the log you're looking for if you can't figure out who assigned a log and where it got assigned to. Sorry, Bill, all yours.
No, I was just going to make a point. If anybody is on this, if they're seeing this video in the future and they're having any issue with this, just make sure we're looking at. You might need to make sure ACE version is up to date for it. Ron's mentioning, so I just want to kind of show the example here. This is this is the way the tasks and the messages appear kind of in the menu in the client, and it may just be as simple as you need an ACE upgrade to do that if you're having any issues. So just want to encourage anybody that wants to pursue this to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to, like Ron said, give you a hand with some of the definition and alerts if it's not something we've already given out of the box as far as that, because we know that other customers benefit too. So yeah, Ron, do you have any anything else there? Or
no, that pretty well wraps up the presentation. I'm available to take questions if anybody's got any questions.
Okay, great, and thank you again for joining us today, and then flip it back to Curtis and to the chat if there's any questions regarding this, or if not, we'll close, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anyone has any questions now, feel free to throw them in the chat. If they come to your mind later, reach out to us. I think everyone on here has at least one of our contact information. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want to see something else. But we appreciate everybody's time today. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Ron, taking the time to go through all that with us.